Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Mythology Monday. Now, today we are going to talk about one of my favorite things that has to do with like mythology and that type of thing, especially Greek mythology, and that is the Labyrinth. Now, okay, very excited about today, so give me a second. Okay, so there are two typical labyrinths that come to mind when I think of a labyrinth, and so we're going to talk about both of those. Now, first of all is the Greek labyrinth, and for that we have the story of Theseus and the Minotaur. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, according to the story, Theseus was a prince of Athens, or like a really highly regarded family in Athens. There had been a battle ages ago between Athens and Crete, which Athens lost. The punishment was a Hunger Games type world where Athens had to send 7 male and 7 female youths every year to Crete. Now, sometimes it's every year, sometimes it's every 7 years, sometimes it's X number of years, whatever variation you read. But some increment of time, they had to send 7 male and 7 female youths to Crete to be sacrificed to the Minotaur in the labyrinth, the bottom of the castle of Crete. Now, for those of you who don't remember what a Minotaur is top body of a bull, bottom half of a man. So, terrifying monster that this particular legend would eat human flesh. So they had to sacrifice these 7 youths of both genders to the Minotaur. Theseus, being the prince, took the place of one of those youths, went to Crete with the purpose of killing the Minotaur. So when he gets there, he sweet talks the princess, which, isn't hard when you're a hot Grecian guy. And so she gives him a thread. He uses that thread to find his way into the labyrinth, find the Minotaur, kill the Minotaur, and come back out through the maze without getting lost in there and dying from thirst or whatever. So he succeeds, he kills the Minotaur, and then he sweeps the princess off her feet and takes her away and ends up dropping off at an island somewhere. So the story doesn't end too great for her, but he ends up coming back to Athens. He's a hero. Minotaur's dead. Blah. So that is the story from the Greek mythology. Very quick, easy one. And so that's the first thing when I think of when a labyrinth. Now, again, he was successful. His tale has gone down in history in that. The second labyrinth that I think of, which some of you will probably never even have heard of, is the David Bowie movie, Labyrinth. And so this was a movie that, if you are too young to know, it's a movie that came out, I want to say in the 80s, had a lot of puppets like the Muppets, but different. And so the girl Sarah, she has to babysit her little stepbrother or half-brother. She hates having to do it, and she wishes the Goblin King would just take him away so she doesn't have to deal with him. Well, surprise, surprise, the Goblin King comes and takes her little brother away. So now she has to go and get him back before her parents come home and find out that she's done this. So she follows him into the magical world and ends up in a giant labyrinth, and at the center of the labyrinth is the Goblin City, where the castle is and the Goblin King is. And so she has to venture through this labyrinth to find her way to get back her little brother. She meets all sorts of critters and ends up finding all sorts of fun characters and friends along the way, like a little caterpillar in a Doctor Who-esque scarf. She ends up with those doors with that riddle of which door do you go into, one lies, one only tells the truth, and that, and ends up reading these strange dancing Muppet type things that kind of look like Fraggles, if you remember them. But so it was a lot of fun. It was a crazy movie, and of course the clothes and the hair and everything is very iconic. Just Google it, you'll understand. But that's the other one I think of in the Labyrinth. And now, in my story, The Head, the Heart, and the Air, you're not going to get to see the Labyrinth until book 5. I'm currently writing book 5. They're in the Labyrinth with what I'm writing right now, and I'm having a blast working on it, gotta be honest with you. And so I won't give too much away, but we're going to follow 3 of the characters on this major adventure through a labyrinth. And so it might technically be a maze, but they don't realize that, so they keep calling it a labyrinth, even though it's technically a maze. And so I'm not going to say for what purpose or anything, but I am going to say that the adventure is creepy. It's an underground labyrinth that they're in, and if they don't get through it, they don't solve this whole thing, doom will befall all. And I'm also going to point out and say that for those who don't know, there's actually a difference between a labyrinth and a maze. Now, a maze has one entrance and a separate exit. You go through a maze, but you end up with dead ends, twists and turns and things, and then you find your way out. But the entrance and exit are separate, and you have to really find your way out. A labyrinth is actually one path through that zigzags around, ends up in the middle, and then goes the opposite direction to come back out the same entrance. So a lot of people use the words interchangeably, but a maze is actually very different from a labyrinth. And so just one last point to say, modern versions of mazes that I could find are typically things like hedge mazes in really big gardens or corn mazes that you get to go through in Halloween and that. So you can still find modern examples of them. They were popular enough that they still hung around. And yeah, I like puzzles, so I'm a big fan of mazes, labyrinths, this type of thing, which is why no one should be surprised there is one in my book. But if you like mazes and puzzles, let me know what is your favorite story or maze or anything like that that you've come across. I'd love to hear it. And yeah, thanks for joining me on this Mythology Monday, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Bye.